Okay, thanks very much. Over the last 12 months, I've been working on some of the issues that have already been raised this evening around healthcare. I've been working with NHS England on the evolution of a lot of their digital products that are designed for behaviour change. What did you think when you first saw my favourite bunny rabbit picture on the screen there? Right, it's absolutely gorgeous picture, isn't it? That's the response I get off most people, although I often think about the moment that happened just before the photo was taken, where somebody got a bunny rabbit and a hat, and they shoved the rabbit into the hat. Probably not the rabbit's proudest moment. But it's great to see that we have some humans in the room anyway. Quick poll around the room. Put your hand up. Do you have one of these? Do you use one of those? Yeah. If you drive a car, do you use one of those? Do you rely on one of those? Yeah. And last one. You good with numbers? Are you good at remembering people's phone numbers? Not so much. Well, again, it's really good to see that we've got some humans in the room, because I use all those three things on an almost daily basis. I think since I learnt to store people's phone numbers in my phone, I've got really lazy. I don't even know my mum's mobile number. I could tell you, though, the phone number of the house I grew up in. I could tell you the phone number of my grandmother's house when probably I was about 7 or 8. But yeah, I can give you about the last 2 or 3 digits of my mum's mobile. Another quick poll. Did you consume more than 2 or 3 units of alcohol in one day in the past week? That's 2 units for the ladies and 3 units for the men. I'll protect the guilty. You don't need to put your hand up now. Again, some humans in the room. And another question. Did you consume more than 6 grams of salt yesterday? One of my favourite questions. This is like a headline public health message about the 6 grams of salt. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm not a walking, talking grams of salt calculating robot. I think I could probably work out if I had more than 6 grams, if I sat down with a calculator, a manual of nutrition, ferreted in a few bins for some packets of some stuff, maybe did a little online research and worked it out very calmly and rationally for a while. But how would I feel if I found out that I had 6.5 grams of salt yesterday? I think I'd be worried. Apparently, half the adults in the UK consume too much salt every day. So around about 26 million people every day have too much salt. Are you now really worried? If you don't think you're in that category, I guess you probably, if we're honest now, you don't really care about the people who are, right, maybe? And if you are in that category, you didn't notice that 26 million people died yesterday as a result of excessive salt intake. So it's one of those things, it's a message we might know. It's very simple, 6 grams of salt. We might know what's high salt food and so on, but it's really hard to interpret that into something that might make us want to change our behaviour. I was at the Blackpool Tower Ballroom recently. I picked up a brochure and it said there are over 30,000 floor tiles on the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. And I thought, wow, that's a fantastic amount of tiles. That must be enormous. But obviously, I've shown you a picture here, but had I not showed you that picture, just telling you there were 30,000 floor tiles wouldn't really give you an idea of scale, because there's a bit of information missing, isn't there? Which is, how big's a tile? The tiles are about so big. They're about 1 foot wide by about 5 inches. So now that I've shared that with you, you've all got a really great mental model of what 30,000 of those in a pattern might look like. Although I'm guessing that you're probably still struggling with that one too. The previous Secretary of State for Health, Andrew Lansley, came up with a blinder. He said that across England we consume 5 billion calories a day too much, which made me feel really worried about my personal contribution to that sugar mountain. And I wondered what 5 billion calories of sugar might look like if we bundled it all into a pile and had a look on a daily basis. And I thought it would be something really grand. So I thought of something that would be something that we could think about, that we've got a mental map of, something like the Empire State Building. And I wondered how high up the Empire State Building this 5 billion calories a day of sugar would go. And when I worked it out, it went about 3 metres high, which is a really rubbish visual. So I reduced the floor plan on my calculation. And I did find out, ladies and gentlemen, that 5 billion calories of sugar would actually fill the lift shaft in one of the Empire State Buildings. So there's an amazing fact you can entertain your friends with at parties next time you have one. But it still doesn't tell me what it means to me. And the reality is it's about a chocolate digestive a day. Now, had they said that from the beginning, I think it would have resonated more. It might not have stopped me eating an extra chocolate digestive, but at least I'd have known what it meant. when it comes to marketing, you don't see marketers using some of the similar language that we get in NHS and partners. They don't say, this is a Radox Bath still, by the way, in case you thought it was flake or tile cleaner or something. It's Radox Bath. They don't say, Radox Bath, buy a 500 milliliter bottle. You know, it gets you clean, it smells of flowers, and for every bottle you can probably have about 15 bathfuls. But it depends how much you like. We've got a handicap that you can measure. They don't talk about it like that. They say, buy some Radox. Let your worries melt away, you know, have this kind of great experience. You look at that and you think, wow, I want to recreate that experience later. I'm right out of Radox. I'm going to pop to the supermarket on the way home and get some. You know, it's not a bullet list of benefits. It's not about the numbers. It's about the feelings. And too much rhetoric in healthcare is numbers-based. You know, we have 10,000 steps a day. We've got the 5 times 30 message. You've got obviously 5 a day. We've got 7 steps for smoking cessation. We talk about investments in new facilities, so many millions of pounds. Actually, I came across someone who said about how they were investing £8 million into some new community healthcare facilities. They even told us how many square feet the floor plans were going to have, and that there were going to be 150 car parking spaces outside. And I thought, I wonder what £8 million looks like as a pile of cash. And it actually would fill a bathtub, probably this bathtub here, which is why she looks so happy. She's lying on that £8 million there. But those things, they don't really resonate because they say they're just numbers, and people are actually more motivated to change their behaviour out of an emotion. And what's going on here is probably something you'll have come across before, this sort of dual processing that goes on in the brain. We've got our rational minds and our subconscious mind, our irrational minds, the emotional part of the brain. And actually, it's the emotional bit of the brain which is huge compared to the other bit. And we have this kind of delusion, I suppose, that we live in a rational world, but actually most of the decisions we make on a daily basis are driven purely by emotion. And if we want to develop healthcare systems that really change behaviour, that make people do things differently, whether it's around access and healthcare, consumption of services, or even around their lifestyles, we have to present our argument in a much more emotional way. Imagine you're going to go and buy a car at the weekend. I can imagine in the morning, Saturday morning, you sit down, you're eating your cereal, you write a list of things that you'd like, I don't know, it's got to be 10,000 or less. It's, you know, you've got to have so many thousand miles on the clock, decent service history, X, Y, Z, you know, around efficiency, ratings and so on. And you take that list to the dealership, you have a look around, you see a car that meets the spec, you take one look at it and you go, ugh. And then you see something that blows your budget, is less economical, is going to cost you, although you work it out, it's going to be about a Starbucks a day for the next 10 years. But you see it, and your emotional brain just goes, hello, baby, I'm taking you home. And suddenly all those rational things that you had in your mind just go out the window. And we rationalise things afterwards. You're driving home and you're thinking about how it's going to save you money in the long term on resale value and all the other kind of things. So we tend to be very swayed, especially around emotional purchases like, say, like cars. Question for you, how do you buy a bottle of wine? I'm a complete heathen when it comes to wine. I mean, what people... I talk to lots of people about this question. They say that a lot of people behave in the kind of rule of thumb way that I do, although maybe we apply different rules of thumb. My basic rule of thumb says that if it costs more, it's probably better. If it's on offer and it's at the same price as something else, so for $4.99 you can have the same bottle of wine as another one at $4.99, but this one actually was originally $6.99, then I'll go for the $4.99 one that used to be $6.99 because obviously it's better. I also think that the label plays a huge part. If it's got a really cool label, then I feel better about drinking it, and my enjoyment experience of that wine is enhanced, even though I have probably no idea what great wine tastes like. So again, it's those little rules of thumb. And actually, while I'm choosing my wine, I'm not present in the supermarket where I'm buying it. I'm actually somewhere else. I'm, you know, at the dinner party I'm having with my friends, you know, sharing a hilarious joke and having a wonderful, lovely time. And not usually what happens where we kind of get to 10 o'clock, we went, oh yeah, we got a bottle of wine, we open it, we have a little bit, and then we forget about the rest, or we kick it over by accident or something like that. I always think about the most emotionally great version of how I'm going to drink said wine. Going back to this thing about this dual brain, the emotional part of the brain, you can't be in both states at once. You can't be both emotional and logical. In fact, if you were to put people into an MRI scanner, you'd see bits of their brain light up like New York City at night. And if they're in an emotional state, it'll be emotional parts of the brain that light up. If they're in a rational place, it'll be those bits. You're not in both at once. And when we're dealing with patients and we're dealing with behaviour change, we're talking about people who may be in pain, they may be uncertain, they don't know what to do, they're anxious, they've just been diagnosed, they're upset, they're grieving, they're bereaved, there's so many emotions that come into healthcare. When it comes to things like closing services, I mean, we're dealing with an enormous array of different emotions, and that's when people really come out fighting. And if you look at that list of things there, you can already see that when it comes to healthcare decisions, quite often we're in one of those states. We don't tend to be in a very calm, rational place when we're looking online at 600 data sets to compare 5 GPs in my local area. It's a much more emotional journey. So my kind of first message is around, they say, this appealing to the hot state in the brain. Another thing is that not only are we just really bad with numbers, we're bad at using those numbers to work out what the chances are of things happening. There's obviously talk about risk, financial risk. We really don't get risk. Some of us are risk takers. We're risk takers in one area and not in others. Many people in the room play the lottery. Quick show of hands if you play the lottery. Be brave. I play it too. I've got 3 tips for lottery players, and they're really great tips. The first one is the rule about timing, and that is if you're going to buy a ticket for a Saturday draw, buy it on the day of the draw or on the day before it, but no earlier. If you buy it earlier, the odds are greater you'd be dead before the draw takes place than you are to win the jackpot. Okay. The second tip is don't use the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm imagining there's people in the room thinking, hang on a minute, they're just as likely to pop up as any other combination of 6 numbers. And you are right. Except there are several thousand boneheads out there who also believe the same. And when those numbers do come in, which maybe in several million years they will, there will be enough money going around to perhaps buy yourself a new refrigerator, so you're better off picking some different numbers. But the last one's a really interesting one, and that is don't use set numbers. Do you know anyone that uses set numbers? They've been using them for the last 18 years. They've worked out now that they actually ain't ever going to win and that they shouldn't be planning their retirement based on this. However, they've got so attached to their numbers and they know them so fluently that they are terrified that the one week they don't put them on is going to be the week that they come in. People behave in astonishing ways to make sure that they put that lottery number on every week. They've put it up to £2. I've heard people having this discussion about doubling their investment in the lottery because they're scared that if they cut down by half the lines that they do, it'll be a line in the one that they cut down, it will be the one that they could have had. They're terrified at the idea that maybe at one point in the future, probably not, but maybe, they could have won a few £1 million or a share thereof. And they actually don't know how they're going to cope if that came true. Yet when it comes to things like cancer, there's a 1 in 16 chance we're going to die of cancer in the next 20 years. It's a really scary thought. And you can actually halve that by being physically active. We're really scared about that idea of maybe possibly not winning that million or several £1 million of money, but we really don't kind of care about this because this is going to happen to other people. That 50% risk that you can reduce by being physically active, watch what happens to this red circle here. This is what happens if you are physically active at 5 times 30 minutes a week, for the rest of your life. Wow, it goes down by that much. Again, I think if people really understood the risks, some people might just go, you know what, I'm going to take my chance. Bad things happen anyway. People might get run over by a bus, and actually EastEnders is on, and I'm just going to sit down, have a cup of tea, and I'll take my chance. And we're perfectly happy with that. Here was a particular favourite on Twitter. It's one of my favourites on Twitter. This came out, a genius thing. It's about 2 years old. NHS Suffolk said, if you're thinking of having a cigarette, remember, it could kill you. I think that if I happen to live in Suffolk, and therefore sort of part of under their patch, and I happen to be a smoker, and I happen to be looking at 6 o'clock on a Saturday, I think I'd be more likely to say, wow, you know what, I haven't had a cigarette for a while. I think I'll pop out and have one. I don't think I'm likely to say, you know what, I was just about to have a cigarette, but now you mention it, I'm scared for my life. And now I need to click on this shortened URL to find out how I can save myself. I clicked on that URL because I was curious, and it started by saying 38,000 people in the UK die every year from lung cancer, and 9 out of 10 of those are caused by smoking. Rhetoric. They actually went into detail on what the local smoking cessation strategy was. Very exciting stuff. A message from the local Director of Public Health. Right at the bottom of the page, if you want to quit, we've got great people who can help you. Don't know why that wasn't there at the top. What was really interesting as well, though, were the replies this got. One of them, because you know how a bit of space junk just came down to Earth this last weekend? Well, there was a piece the size of a small truck was about to land that very weekend, and someone said what will happen is that you'll be outside the pub having your cigarette and you'll have it land on your head, which again just makes us realise how badly people understand risk. The other thing is a bit of hardwiring that we have. I've been working probably a little too hard this week. When I go home tomorrow, I've said to the other half, as a reward, when I get back, we're going to tackle the spare bedroom. We've got these flat pack wardrobes that we haven't put up for about 6 months, and we're going to do those. And you're right now thinking, what kind of life does she lead? It's a lie, by the way, and it's the only lie I'll tell you tonight. And I have to say that because one day someone came up to me and I said, no, the wardrobes didn't exist. And they actually rewrote everything that I'd ever said to them as if it was a complete lie. But anyway, the point is I'm talking about reward for working hard. And the reward that I'm talking about is actually an investment behaviour, a bit like the hard work. We flip-flop between two types of behaviour. So we've got experience behaviour and investment behaviour. Experience is about the here and now. It's kind of reward behaviour. It's how we behave on holiday. Let's just sit by the pool because we can. Let's get another ice cream, and so on. Investment behaviour is about being deliberate, building stuff for the future. Quick word cloud of investment behaviour makes it look really exciting, right? Little word cloud of experience behaviour, a little bit more attractive, okay? This is why 0% APR is such an evolutionary kind of like magic spot for us, because if you were going to buy a sofa this weekend, and you could have it next week and pay the exact same amount of money every month for the next 4 years and have it kind of now rather than in 4 years' time, it's an absolute no-brainer. We're actually hardwired to want to experience things in the here and now. We don't like, it's a pain, we sort of that pain of saving up for stuff. But we also do that with our health in the way that we smoke and we say, that's all right, I've got a few years, I'll put it right when I'm 30, or we perhaps eat too much and we think, oh, it's okay, I'll go on a diet after the wedding, and all those kinds of things that we kid ourselves about. And this is it in action. It's called hyperbolic discounting. You've probably come across it before. And this is where the desire for things you can have straight away is at its absolute highest. Now, imagine I've got some money in my bag and I'm going to either give all of you £100 each on the way out, or I'll take your details and I'll send you a cheque for £200 in a year. Who wants £100 tonight? Quick show of hands. Anyone? A few? Okay. And who wants £200? I'd imagine a few less. Those of you that want £100, you're thinking what you spent it on already. Okay, new scenario. I'm going to take all of your details. I'm going to either send you £100 in 5 years or £200 in 6 years. Who now wants £100 in 5 years? And who wants £200 in 6 years? Almost everybody at this point. Now, I'm not a mind reader, but I imagine it was something along the lines of, well, if I'm going to have to wait 5 years, I might as well wait another year and double my money. Yet in the first scenario, so few of you were prepared to wait another year to double your money. So the same scenario, it was just projected into the future. And again, it's just a really quick and easy way of demonstrating this kind of desirability. The desire is highest for the things we can have straight away. Big impact there when we're talking to people about, closing down facilities, how it's going to be in 10 years. We need to invest in community services, and so on and so forth. These kind of, we write 20-year strategies in the NHS, and, I don't know about you, I have no idea what the world's going to look like in 10 years' time. Only have to look 5 years into the past to be pretty scared of how it's going to go. And I say a final thought on this very point is somebody put some roadworks up outside your house or outside the place you work, it's going to be there for a couple of days. I mean, what an inconvenience. Seems to go forever, doesn't it? So again, we have a very distorted idea of time. So I'm just going to leave you with those 3 things to think about when it comes to designing systems for emotional users, designing systems for real behaviour change. In summary, keep it emotional and keep it personal. So anticipate some of those kind of rules of thumb errors that we have when it comes to decision making. And we're really rubbish with the numbers, so don't expect people to understand the numbers. Put it into some kind of context. And finally, if you've got something that's going to take a while to mature, tell people what they can have in the meantime, so it'll keep them happy on the way. Thank you very much.